Hey everybody, Scott Walters, welcome to the show. We've got a good one for you today. I got Michael Bordenero with us today. Michael, welcome to town, my friend.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, it's
Nice
a
to be in
pleasure
Santa
to have
Barbara.
you. So Michael, you've come from one coast to the other, from across the continental US, from Florida. You're in Southern California today. You brought your lovely girlfriend, absolutely great. What do you think so far about your trip so far?
I love it here, man. I mean, I came here knowing that it was going to be as gorgeous as this. It's not my first time here, but, I'm happy to be out of the Florida heat. Here it's just gorgeous today, like 75 degrees, sunny. Can't complain, man.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I'm really glad that Michael reached out to me. A bunch of you, I think, alerted me that he was going to be here. So thank you for that. I'm a huge fan. Your channel is doing great. One of the things I told Michael is I really love the style of your channel because you're a walk and talk guy. You're smart. You've been in the industry, but you're also super relatable. I think people just relate with you. Today I've wore some glasses that have some wood grain on it and a t-shirt. I didn't have a tank, but I did this for you.
Awesome.
And but anyway, one of the things I really wanted to talk about, because most of the audience clearly is interested in the health and the fitness of the U.S. housing market. We put it through, Michael, another bubble, and anytime the market gets put into a bubble, regardless of what put it there, it's gonna have some crash risk. And you, me, both of us benefit from this bubble continuing. But having lived through the last financial crisis and bubble of 2008, for whatever reason, we decided to kind of whistle blow this one and kind of
Yeah,
warn people, right?
that's
Is
right.
that kind of where you're at?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got my real estate license right at the beginning of the last housing crash. I was licensed in March of 2009, so literally the market was plummeting back then, and I saw people lose their homes. There was a ton of foreclosures and short sales, especially in Miami. Market there went down by 50% in the span of 4 or 5 years, and it was a bloodbath. So I've seen it firsthand, and I know kind of like what the warning signs are. And to me, it started becoming apparent towards the end of 2021 that we're headed back that way. And so that's when I kind of like shifted my content on YouTube to kind of start talking about this, recognizing it as a real estate agent. And now a lot of people think that people like me and Scott and others on YouTube are just wrong because the market hasn't really crashed yet. But that's not really how it works. And I wish people would kind of listen to us more, really what we're saying, and not just pay attention to the headlines, because we throw up a lot of data. We give you guys warning signs of what to look for, because if you can't recognize it, then you are going to be one of these people that say, oh, it's never going to go down. It's always going to go up. But there's not really an avenue for real estate to continue to keep going up from here without further government stimulus and intervention and more quantitative easing from the Fed. So unless that happens, this is going to have to come down at some point sooner or later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the wheels just start spinning when I listen to anybody talk real estate. But one of the things, like you said, I mean, the realities are we had overnight appreciation to never seen before highs. That alone, my friend, is super scary. And that's overnight. It wasn't gradual. It was a complete spike. If you lay the data points next to each other, this thing is a mirror image of 2008, actually a little worse.
Yes.
So, I mean, that alone should have people's attention based on my experience, because in the last bubble, I didn't really understand the booms and bust cycles the way maybe I do now. I think most people just, it's not their fault. They've never lived through a booms or a bust cycle as a bill paying adult themselves and suffered some of that. Otherwise, in this bubble, they might be, have a different take on it. In the last bubble, I was kind of out of self-preservation because I bought in it. This time is different. Weather the storm. Real estate always comes back. I was telling myself anything I could to make it okay that I bought in a bubble. Unfortunately, I ended up not being okay. Now I have other real estate I bought outside the bubble that I still hold today, but that one piece that I bought, it had to go. So I'm a little nervous right now about the people that not only bought in this bubble, because one of the things, Michael, that comes to mind for me in the last bubble, I saw people buy in the height. That was one of them. But I didn't go above and beyond appraised values. I never saw bidding wars. I never
Right.
saw a line around the block to get into an open house. I never saw people buying property sight unseen. I never saw anybody waiving inspections and contingencies, not knowing the health and the fit. I never saw a lot of things, and that's even as somebody who had financial gain in these markets. I just say this is so abnormal. There is no way this thing can sustain itself. But now we're seeing, and you've had a lot of guests on your show. One of the ones I like is Nick from Reventure.
Yep.
He's a data nerd. That's all he does, and he's doing a beautiful job in showing people that the data is now warning. It's not just an experienced agent anymore. The data is revealing a lot of warning signs.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
100%.
100%. I mean, it's
100%.
I kind of did all the talking, like you didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Scott. You know, Nick does a fantastic job, you know, and he presents all the data, and the data is showing that this is unsustainable, okay? And the problem is that I think the media is kind of twisting this into a narrative where people are believing that it can continue, but there's really no avenue for it to continue, like I said earlier. But really, the only thing that we need to happen for all of this to come crashing down is more inventory. And some people will say, well, why would anybody sell? Because they have these low interest rates. Well, I just talked to a real estate agent a few days ago in LA. Some of you out there might have seen that video. And she's telling me how people are already selling who just bought back in 2020 or 2021. Why are they doing that? They have low interest rates, guys. They can't afford it anymore. That's the problem. They don't realize that when they get into the home, oh, property taxes are going to go up. Oh, insurance is going to go up. Oh, it's expensive to replace an air conditioner. All these, oh, I didn't know these kind of things. And that makes homeownership unaffordable for a lot of people. And when you have an environment like this, where the entire economy is making everything cost more, we have everything costing more than it did 2 years ago. Inflation just had the most recent CPI reading, 3.2%. Now it's moving back up in a higher direction again. And even those numbers, I mean, who believes that? Is your life only 3.2% more expensive this year than it was last year? I don't think so. I think most of us can agree that it's a lot more expensive than that. And when you factor those things in, along with paying these high house payments and high costs of ownership when it comes to just maintaining a home, those are going to be the avenues of where the inventory is going to come from. And then once you start seeing people list homes, then everybody starts panicking and says, well, I better do it too before the prices go too low. And it's kind of that domino effect. It's the same thing that happened during the last housing market crash. I know people don't like that word, and you can call it whatever you want, but the fact of the matter is, when the inventory does get released, that's when you're going to see the prices come down substantially, because we're already seeing markets with price cuts. I forgot to check the data here in Santa Barbara, but I'm staying down in Carpinteria, just south of here, and prices are down 4% year over year there. And that's with record low inventory, okay? So that's unheard of. You don't really see that. Why are prices still coming down if inventory is so low? These are the kind of questions that you need to start asking yourself, and these are the things that Scott and I here are talking about on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always find myself talking about, real estate's local, all areas behave differently. We're in a destination area. It's going to be a little more resilient, maybe a little recession insulated, but nobody's recession proof. We got hit in the last one, and I expect that to happen again. But like you said, even in a limited inventory environment, we're seeing it stalled. It's clearly stalled. It was market manipulation that put us in this bubble, right? Through stimulus.
Right.
It's market manipulation now that's stalling this bubble. The challenge is now is it's got crash risk written all over it because the U.S. savings rate is an all-time low. People are exhausted their money. U.S. debt at an all-time high. They're bridging the gap with credit cards. That data is there. So it's just, we've hit the crest. It's now starting its downward trend. We've just started, right? So now it's really, my thing is always percentage of likelihood. You, me, everybody has to put a percentage of likelihood on where you think, where you're at on this. All I can tell you is what I think. You have to make up your own decision. My job is to help you basically be insulated, expect the unexpected. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I don't want people to be a deer in the headlights if all of a sudden they lose their job, which is their goal. Next goal is job loss. That is what we want to do, is tame the job market. We want unemployment to go up. That is the goal right now, to calm down the economy. That's not good. That means people are going to lose their homes. Now, we'll see stimulus packages or at least bailout programs targeted at the housing market to try to keep it up. How do I know that, you ask? Because I lived through 2008. We had the Obama-backed loan mob targeting people to keep them in their homes. It didn't work. This bubble, I think you have to just understand these are the waters we're swimming in now. I love helping people buy real estate. I love real estate. It's afforded me so much. I love real estate. But I don't like telling somebody to their face, no crash risk here. Come on, let's go look at this house.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to have to get some money out of mom and dad because we got to go above. We got a lot of offers on this. I don't care. For me, I'd rather put my clients' needs before my own, earn their business later. You're at the top of a real estate bubble. There's nothing wrong with waiting at this point. Prices aren't going to go up. At best, they're going to flatline. And like the percentage of likelihood tells me they're going to go down. In fact, the data is showing us in most places they're doing exactly that. In fact, in a lot of places, the pandemic boom towns are already exhibiting very volatile behavior. So we've got a little bit of pain in front of us, it would appear, but if you expect it, you don't have to be paralyzed by it. In fact, you might even benefit. And that's why I always believe, circle the wagons with people that think the way you do. You're not going to convince anybody that just bought they're in trouble. They have to cheerlead. Let them cheerlead. They have to. You can hope for the best for those people. I don't regret going through 2008 anymore because what I've learned is very valuable to me today. But I certainly don't want to do the same thing over expecting a different result.
Absolutely.
If I bought in another bubble expecting a different result, that would be the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Would there anything you'd like to say in closing to the audience, Michael, before we go?
Well, like Scott just said, real estate is local. And when you hear things that we're talking about here on YouTube, recognize, like Scott just said, like places that went up substantially during the pandemic, those are the places that have the most risk of coming down. Now, if you live in the Midwest, where I'm originally from, you're probably not going to be at too much of a high risk of a housing crash. If you bought a house for 150 grand, during the pandemic, and now you say that house is worth 200,000, you don't have a lot to lose, I guess you could say, versus somebody who's buying a house today that's worth 800,000, and during the pandemic prior to that, it was a $400,000 house. So people who are in that position have a lot more to lose. And that's kind of the warning sign that we're flashing right now, because let's face it, people, like most people want to live in these areas, and that's why the home prices are so high. Santa Barbara wouldn't have $3-4 million homes here if people didn't want to live here. But that's why these prices are so high, because so many people do want to live here. And the problem is, the higher it went up, the more it might fall. And so that's kind of like what I would want to leave people with. Sure, if you're buying a $200,000 house in Ohio, guys, knock yourself out. You're probably going to be fine. But the thing is, you can still lose money, and don't believe the lies that they tell you. Like, especially your real estate agent will say, oh, don't worry about the 7.5% mortgage rate. You can refinance that in 3 or 4 years when it's lower. No, you can't, especially if you bought the house for more than it's going to be worth in 3 to 4 years from now. That's a lie, guys. And those are the kinds of things that we're just warning against here. A lot of people look at it as fear-mongering, but that's not what it is. It's just warnings to make sure you don't fall into the same pitfalls. It's really what we're trying to do here.
Great way to end it. And you're absolutely right. There's certain areas, if you're within the median home price national average, you're going to be a little insulated. It's all comes down to risk tolerance. You can buy here, you can buy in Ohio, you can buy anywhere you want. Just don't spend your last dollar to do it. Home ownership isn't worth being house poor. I don't want you to be one hiccup, one flat tire away from a tailspin and you can't keep up with the house payments. Always check the property. What's its rent range? That's the true value of a house. So what somebody would be willing to rent it for. And like Michael talks about, when it's cheaper to own than to rent, then it makes sense. If you got to put your neck really far out to own, you're better off renting. So that means it determines how much money do I have to put down on this house. So I sleep better at night. I'm going to pull an insurance policy for myself because I don't trust my lender or my agent to protect me, because they're telling me stuff like rate buy downs or refinance later, you'll be fine. No, you need to pull your own insurance policy by checking the property. What's its rent range? Even though it's not a rental, I want to know if anything ever happens to me. Hold the asset, renter goes in while I figure things out. In fact, that's what I want to see out of you, because 95% of all millionaires made their money in real estate. It wasn't by owning their one primary home for the rest of their life. It was that first home and then eventually put a renter in second home. You just do that a handful of times, and you too can find wealth in real estate. That's my job, is to hopefully help you guys do that. So Michael, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Scott.
You are the man. You are the
you.
man. And please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys on the next video.